Welcome to the Radiology Vault, an open repository for radiology educational content designed for learners and medical professionals. Presented by the Michigan Medicine Department of Radiology.
Hello, my name is Mohamed Sayyouh and I am a cardiothoracic radiologist at Michigan Medicine. Today I'm going to talk to you about cross-sectional imaging of the pericardium. I have no relevant disclosures. In this short presentation I will discuss anatomy of normal pericardium and how it appears on cross-sectional imaging, physiology and function of normal pericardium, and will briefly go over why this is important to understand certain disease processes. The pericardium is a serous sac that envelopes the heart. You can see this as a thin line surrounding the heart on cross-sectional imaging. This thin line consists of two layers, an inner layer called the visceral pericardium and an outer layer called the parietal pericardium. Normally, there is a tiny amount of fluid in between the two layers. Inner to the visceral pericardium, there is a layer of fat called the epicardial fat. And outer to the parietal pericardium, there is another layer of fat called the pericardial fat. Towards the base of the heart, the pericardium forms reflections around and in between the attachment of great vessels to form what we call pericardial sinuses and recesses. To explain that, let's imagine that we are looking at the heart and the pericardium from the front. Let's imagine that we removed that anterior portion of the pericardium, and this is what we are going to see. We are going to see part of the ascending aorta, part of the pulmonary artery, distal portion of the superior vena cava, part of the left atrial appendage, and portions of the right atrium and left ventricle, and the right ventricle. Now let's imagine that we removed the heart and this is the posterior part of the pericardium from inside. We will see portions of the big vessels and the attachment of the four pulmonary veins, which we can see here. You will notice that at the base of the heart, the pericardium forms many reflections around the great vessels, forming what we call recesses and sinuses. This is the superior aortic recess, right pulmonic recess, left pulmonic recess, postcaval recess, right pulmonary venous recess, left pulmonary venous recess, an oblique sinus, and transverse sinus. Before I show you how these recesses and the sinuses look like on cross-sectional imaging, let's agree that to call something a recess or a sinus, it should be triangular or crescentic or lenticular in shape. It should be at the expected location of a sinus or recess. It should have fluid density, and it should not enhance in post-contrast imaging. The first recess is the superior aortic recess. The image on the left is an axial MRI image, and the one on the right is a contrast-enhanced CT image. On these two images, the sinus appears as a triangular-shaped structure with fluid density or signal intensity, and it has an anterior and posterior portions. Note that it does not enhance on post-contrast scan. Another recess is the recess below the left main pulmonary artery and is called the left pulmonic recess. Note the fluid density. The recess below the right pulmonary artery is called the right pulmonic recess. Again, note the fluid density. In between these two recesses, there is a transverse sinus. In between and sometimes below the right pulmonary vein, there is the right pulmonary venous recess. Again, note the fluid density. In between the left pulmonary veins, there is the left pulmonary venous recess, and in my experience, it is the most difficult one to see. Just posterior to the distal SVC, there is the post-caval recess. In between the pulmonary veins, along the posterior aspect of the heart, just posterior to the left atrium, there is the oblique sinus. Before I show you how this knowledge of the sinuses and the recesses can be valuable, I would like to mention what we are usually looking for when we look at the pericardium on CT. We usually look for any pericardial thickening, enhancement, fluid, hair, mass, or calcifications. Now I will show you a couple of examples on how knowledge of pericardial recesses and sinuses can be helpful. On this first example, we see this soft tissue in between the vessels. Now we know that it is a pericardial mass along the right and the left pulmonic recesses, and probably also along the transverse sinus, which confirms its pericardial location. Another example that I am showing here shows how to differentiate between a pericardial recess and an enlarged mediastinal lymph node. To be able to do that, we shall pay attention to shape, location, attenuation, and enhancement, as I mentioned before. On the first image on the left, the arrow points towards the right pulmonary venous recess. Notice the typical location, fluid density, and non-enhancement. On the right, you can see a lymph node that is in a similar location but has soft tissue attenuation and is probably enhancing. Another example, on this image here, the arrow points towards the posterior portion of the superior aortic recess. On the right, you can see an enlarged lymph node that has soft tissue attenuation, and it is in a closed location. Now, a normal pericardium provides an important function. It fixes the heart within the mediastinum and protects it from spread of extracardiac disease. A great importance of the normal elastic pericardium is that it is really important for normal cardiac function, as it prevents sudden dilatation of cardiac chambers, allowing good diastolic filling and normal cardiac output. It also transmits respiratory variations of intrathoracic pressure to the cardiac chambers. One of the major advantages of MRI over CT in pericardial imaging is that it can provide information about function of the heart and how different walls are moving. This becomes important to evaluate when the pericardium loses its normal elasticity, most commonly as a result of chronic infection or inflammation or involvement by a tumor. A thick, rigid, non-elastic pericardium will cause limited diastolic filling and increased filling pressures in all cardiac chambers, especially on the right. It will also cause dissociation between intrathoracic and intracardiac pressures. This will result in two signs on MRI imaging that would indicate constrictive physiology. These two signs are ventricular septal bounce in diastole and septal motion to the left side during inspiration. This is a four-chamber cine image that shows septal bounce during systole. This is due to the increase in intraventricular pressure when the cardiac muscle relaxes against a stiff pericardium. This short-axis imaging in both inspiration and expiration in a normal subject. Pay attention to the interventricular septum. It's convex to the right side, and it does not change its configuration in inspiration or expiration. Now, in this abnormal image, you will notice that with inspiration, when the diaphragm moves down, the interventricular septum becomes flattened or even convex towards the left side. This is due to increased right-sided pressures with increased venous return during inspiration and relaxation against a stiff pericardium. These signs on MRI are important to differentiate pericardial constriction and myocardial restriction, as both of these diseases cause signs and symptoms of right-sided heart failure. However, these diseases have different management pathways. This table shows other findings in both conditions that can help further differentiation. Conclusions. Knowing anatomy of the pericardium can help understanding and identifying pathological conditions. CT and the MRI are important tools in evaluating the pericardium. MRI has an advantage of providing information about pericardial physiology and cardiac function. Differentiation between constrictive and pericarditis and restrictive cardiomyopathy is important in determining treatment plan. Thank you for your attention.